May I speak in the name of God, our Creator, Redeemer, and life-giving Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
See, I am sending you out. I am sending you out. Jesus' words to the 70, whom he instructs to go on ahead of him with, it seems, minimal preparation and very few instructions. I am sending you out. The idea of being sent out might seem a hard one for us to relate to at the moment, with the prospect of more lockdowns around the corner and so many people in our nation already finding their horizons limited once again. Being sent out might seem like it's quite a long way from our current experience. And yet I wonder if today those words might be as resonant and as challenging for us as they were for Christ's original followers. Because being sent out into unfamiliar territory has never been easy. It's required courage and determination always for people to leave the familiarity of their daily lives and their routines. If we think back to the calling of the first disciples, then it seems that the call to follow and then to be sent out was one of disruption, of discontinuity, and of disconnect. They left all that they had. They left their families, they left their livelihoods. And it's interesting on this day when we celebrate St. Luke to think of his own strange vocation. First the physician, then the evangelist, finding himself travelling far from home and way outside his comfort zone with Paul, being sent out across the nations, across oceans even, and all the time retaining his doctor's eye for the detail as he wrote his accounts of the life of Jesus first and then the book of Acts, taking the story on beyond the death and resurrection of Christ himself. And Jesus makes it clear, the calling for all of us is to be sent out as Christ's labourers into the metaphorical fields, to take the good news to people and to bring to God the harvest of all those who hear it. There's a degree of urgency in what's being asked for. We're to be sent out pretty much as we are, with no purse, no bag, no sandals. And when we get to wherever we're going, we will, it seems, be like lambs in the midst of wolves. It's a complicated world out there, and apparently people may not want the sort of good news that we're going to take them. Or so it might seem. But before we rush to say that the rule of 6 makes it impossible for us to follow Christ's command, or that the foreshortening of our horizons in so many ways during COVID-19 makes going out simply not an option, well then perhaps we need to pause and just think about our lives a little bit more carefully. Twice a year, normally, I find myself jumping on a plane and heading to Southeast Asia to run workshops in the electricity industry. And over the last 5 years or so, I've met all sorts of colleagues, many of whom have become friends. I've met people on planes, I've had extraordinary conversations in all sorts of places. And this week, I should have been travelling to another of those meetings, except that, of course, it didn't happen. Well, that's to say, it didn't happen in one of those big conference centres in Vietnam or Thailand or China, but it did happen on Zoom. And so, after making suitable time zone adjustments and turning up before dawn in my office in Guildford, I got onto the computer, and there they all were. 36 familiar faces in 10 different countries, some gathered in meeting rooms, some just one-to-one online. There they were, and I spent 2 mornings in the company of people I've got to know over time, and in my mind and in my spirit, I found myself being transported once again to that place of friendship and camaraderie, listening to people's technical challenges, but also catching up with their lives. And whether it's work, or whether it's connecting with our families, whether it's church groups like the Trinity Club or the Upper Room meeting online, I'm sure all of us have examples of making connections in this challenging time by different methods from usual, but still connecting. Still finding ourselves reaching out of ourselves as we make contact with people whom we may know well, people we know less well, in coffee rooms, on Zoom, whatever it may be. As someone once described it, putting something of ourselves outside ourselves. And it's when we do that, in whatever way, that we're responding to Christ's command to be sent out. It's when we take the time to be aware of others, to listen to them, to start to understand their concerns and anxieties, finding ourselves able to reassure, to comfort perhaps, to laugh, to share our ideas, sometimes perhaps only just to sit there and be with those people on the other end of Zoom, in our midst, wherever it may be. Then we are all doing the work that Christ calls us to do, to take God's message of peace, hope, and love to others. It's very easy when we hear the instruction to go and do, to think that we have somehow got to put on a different persona, that we've got to be able to solve people's problems, that we've got to be exactly what's required in every place, at every time, for everyone we meet. And yet somehow that's not quite it. Because just as Luke never stopped being the physician with the meticulous eye for detail as he sailed the storm-tossed seas of Paul's journeys and ministry, so we are called to be nothing more or less than ourselves as we connect with others in whatever way we can. Take no purse, no bag, no sandals, but just take and be yourself, just as you are, with all the hang-ups, all the inconsistencies, all the wobbles that you feel from day to day, but never lose hope in the possibility that you still have something to share sometime with someone that could just make all the difference to them. Jesus says, "Go on your way. I am sending you out." So go out. Be that physically, online, in the immediacy of your own home and surroundings, however you may do it. Go out into the real, virtual or internal world, bearing God's message of hope. But whatever you do, go out and be yourself. Amen.